My husband took everything and vanished when he found out about my secret love affair. Have you ever felt the urge to do something that was always on your mind and let loose? Well, letting yourself go and you're letting your mind take control without discipline and do what you've always wanted to do. Well, I had thought I was making myself feel alive again. I wanted to have that feeling that everyone has, a feeling of being free again. I wanted to remind myself that you can also let loose or have fun while you are married. Have you ever shared your deepest desires with someone, only to have them disappear from your life? Imagine telling someone you love that you want a future together, but with the freedom to explore connections with others. That's what happened to me. I opened up about my need for an open relationship, hoping for understanding and acceptance. Instead, he vanished without a trace, leaving me wondering what went wrong. One thing about me is that I always say what I feel, without even care of how you would receive it and what you would do about it, but as long as I have told you what I wanted you to know. But in this case, it was different. I didn't expect him to act the way he did. I had thought that if I open up to him and tell him how I feel, he would understand and somehow sit down with me and discuss the issue at hand in a civil way. Instead, he just packed and left to only God knows where. I just couldn't believe him. I mean, yes, I loved him, but why would he act so childish? I mean, because most people nowadays, especially women, no longer be themselves when they get married. Some lose themselves to a point that they make marriages look like it's a union to someone's true self. Some end up regretting ever getting married because they would no longer be allowed to do things that had made them happy. They become people they are not, which kills most of our married sisters. It does not feel free when you get married. This took a lot of bravery to share, so I only accept advice and not judgments. They call me Veronica Cooper, female 27, and my husband is Mike Andrews, male 37. We first met at a golf club estate. There was a business meeting that they had at the estate while playing gold. I was a waitress for the day. Well, I was studying towards my master's degree in psychology, so I was doing a side job while I was studying so that Elle would be able to make ends meet and be able to pay for my studies. That day, I was assigned to work on the field making sure that the business gurus were well taken care of and they had everything that they needed. So as I was catering for them, I slightly made a mistake. I missed a step, and the drink that I was holding accidentally fell on one of the businessmen's lap. The guy shouted at me and called me stupid and other harsh names. I tried apologizing, but the guy wasn't having it and he was a blazing fire. Mike came to my rescue and spoke with the guy, telling him that it was a mistake and he will pay for the damage that I had done to the guy's golfing short pants. I didn't know what to say, so I just thanked Mike for the rescue. That day was the toughest day in my working history. I felt so belittled, humiliated, embarrassed, and stupid. It's really hard being a waitress because you always have to put a smile on your face, even if you are not feeling well. Or if a customer didn't like what you have served them, then they call you names and stupid. It's really hard working under the term of a customer is always right, even if they are the ones at fault. Some managers end up firing a waitress because of a customer's complaint and telling the manager that your service is bad. It's hard to always try to be calm and keep on smiling even when the situation doesn't allow you. But because you need the job, you have to follow the rules and put your feelings aside. Anyway, as I kept apologizing to the arrogant businessman, Mike told me to stop apologizing and go continue with my work. I won't lie, I was relieved when I was away from that arrogant man. Later on, Mike came to my working station and apologized for how his associate behaved, but I would have to help him clean that man's golfing shorts since I'm the one who missed a step and poured an orange juice on his white golfing shorts. As much as it was going to cost me almost all my salary, but I knew I had to clean up that man's shorts no matter what. Mike then asked him to give him my number so that he can call me when we have to go and clean the golfing short pants. I hesitated at first. I was only 20 years and I think he was 30 at that time. I eventually gave him my number because the guy was going to help me clean the arrogant man's short pants. He called after 2 days, mind you. At that time, I was thinking, how was I going to afford golfing pants? Or how was I going to get money to clean it? I met up with Mike at the mall. The guy bought new golfing short pants for the arrogant man. Since then, we got along. We would chat more through WhatsApp. Mike was a sweet, loving, and caring man who liked being cocky. He was just a breath of fresh air, a best friend, a good advisor, and an awesome lunch dates partner. 2 months after he told me that he couldn't hold himself anymore, he needed someone to grow old with. At first, I didn't understand what he was saying until he asked me to be his girlfriend officially. I was just lost for words. The guy is afforded and has everything that he wants and needs, so why would he want to have a girlfriend as simple as me? So we dated for like 8 months, and I can actually say that it was just everything and more. During those months, he had taken me to meet with his parents. They were such a welcoming and loving family, especially his mother. Oh, that woman is such a sweetheart with a good heart. And not to mention his sister, she was just a breath of fresh air. She had the vibe that I actually needed, and she was my age, which was a bonus. Well, I didn't have any friends, so Mike's sister became the best friend I had ever had. My relationship with Mike was just a bliss, and it was actually what I had been praying for. He was like my answered prayers, not knowing that the guy actually had anger issues and bipolar disorder. Mike would always make sure that I was happy, secured, and had everything that I needed. The guy even paid for tuition fees, imagine, and I will forever be grateful for what he had done to me. Well, since I do not have any family members in Woodlands, Singapore, it was hard for me to take Mike home to my family, but I had introduced him to them via Skype, which helped a lot. After a year, I think Mike proposed and I said yes, but I had my terms and conditions. He got confused when I said that I had terms and conditions, but he listened to me. I actually regret even starting to address my desires to him because I didn't like the outcome of it. It actually made me feel like I had driven the love of my life away because of my greed and desires. I won't lie. I needed what I needed in a relationship. I was still young, so I needed to explore some things. After years of dating, we decided to tie the knot. I was the happiest woman ever. Months went by and I was starting to feel a little bored, especially when my husband is always away on his golfing trips, his part of the Golf Nation tournament. I always get tempted to go out clubbing and doing something crazy and let loose just a bit before I reach my 30s, but I always contain myself and not go out at all. I would discipline myself. My temptation ends being a thought. But there was a time when my husband left for a golfing trip. I could resist the urge of going out with my friends from college. I saw that as the perfect opportunity to break free from the monotony of my married life and have a little fun. So I started by cleaning the house and doing some much-needed grocery shopping. But as the day went on, I found myself feeling more and more restless. I felt the urge of wanting to let loose a little. I needed to open my relationship with Mike, but I didn't know how and where I could start addressing the issue or breaking the news to him. I didn't know how he would react, and I was scared of the outcome. I had so many what-ifs in my head, but I knew I needed to tell him about my desires. After a lot of thought, I decided to call the girl that I was working with. Her name is Prudence, female, 29. Prudence and I were attending the same university, and she is the one who introduced me to the manager of the restaurant and catering company that I was working in. That's how we got along, so I called her and asked her to join me on a date. Luckily, she agreed and told me that she wanted to introduce me to a new restaurant and a chilling spot that had recently opened not far from where we worked. So we agreed to meet in town so that she would take me to that new spot. Little did I know that the girl actually wanted to take me to the club. I didn't ask any questions because I trusted Prudence, and I knew that she wouldn't take me to a place that harms me or gets me in trouble with my husband. I really thought we were just going to eat, have a few drinks, then later on, before the sun sets, we would part ways. But that wasn't the case with Prudence. Later on, Prudence and I met and we had our lunch, then decided to drink while I told her about my desires and how my husband had been absent lately. We drank and ended up enjoying the good music and the vibe. We had a couple of drinks and two guys came to us and asked us to join them. Because of Prudence's forwardness, she accepted the guy's request of joining them when things would get hectic. One of the guys approached me and started giving me compliments. He was very charming and a bit handsome, younger than me, probably 25. Prudence then suddenly said, "Let's move the party elsewhere." But how I wish she didn't say that, but I couldn't predict what was about to happen. I wanted to refuse, but at some point I didn't want to leave Prudence with unknown guys that we had recently known, so I stayed and obeyed. I know that was a stupid move for me because I was married, but that time I had put my marriage life aside and went with the moment. We went to the Orchid Country Club Hotel, which was about 5 kilometers from the restaurant. As we were there drinking with the guys, I started to notice that there's 2 of us and 2 of them, meaning everyone had a partner. I started feeling a little uneasy as I was the only one married amongst these people, and they were so chilled. I won't lie, those guys were funny. The guy who was giving me a compliment came to me as I was gazing at the view outside. He introduced himself as Gary Lawrence, male, 25 or 6, I'm not sure. He had a way of making me feel comfortable. Well, this is when I realized I needed to loosen myself a bit as I was feeling a bit of guilt. We started to talk about life and conspiracies, and we realized we had something in common, and drinks kept on coming. The music kept on playing, and our conversation kept getting deeper, and I found myself drawn to his charming smile and kind eyes. He was just a breath of fresh air. We fell asleep on the couch, cuddling each, and I was grateful that nothing happened to us. At first, I felt a mixture of guilt and excitement that nothing had happened, and I had an opportunity to let loose. I had never done anything like that before, and I wasn't sure if I could ever forgive myself, but nothing happened right. So why feel guilty when nothing has happened? So as the day went on, I found myself losing myself in the moment, and the guilt began to fade away. Our trip came to an end, and I knew that I had to go back to my boring house, plus my husband was coming back, so I had to go. When I got home, I had found my husband already back, which was a shock to me because I didn't expect him to be back earlier since I had also tried to be back earlier than him. Well, I guess he had beat the traffic. He asked where I was coming from, so I told him that I had gone to a night away with the girls. But I left the guy's part aside because if I had mentioned it, hell would have broken loose. Sometimes my husband and I would spend our weekends together, but it wasn't fun because he would always watch golf games and I would be sitting with him reading a book, which was purely boring for me. My mind was thinking about the trip that me and the girls had. I'd been feeling neglected by my husband for quite some time, even if he was around. He was always busy with work and his golfing games never seemed to have time for me. I felt like I was just a mere obligation to him, rather than a beloved partner. I won't lie and say the girls' night was boring because it wasn't. It was actually full of life and fun. I enjoyed every moment of it, and I wished I could turn back the hands of time and go back to that night. Months passed. My husband had been too occupied with work and his golfing games. To tell the truth, golf really bores me. There is actually no fun in it. It shows that it's a game for rich people. So one day, a guy from the trip texted me on Instagram. I was so shocked about why he would send me a text on my Instagram. But I didn't ask him anything, I just replied to his messages, which were actually a very good distraction because I was somehow bored at home. So he had asked me to accompany him to his friend's party. I hesitated at first because I didn't know what I would tell my husband. But God came through for me. And I really needed to get some air and let loose a little. I had been cooped up in the house for way too long. I had been itching to let loose and have some fun, but I didn't want to do anything that would jeopardize our marriage. So that weekend was a great opportunity for me to let loose a little. As soon as my husband was gone, I decided to take advantage of the situation. I put on my favorite dress, did my hair and makeup, and waited for Harold to come and fetch me because that was the plan. When we got there, I felt the vibe already. There were so many people, and I guess it was friends and maybe colleagues. I spotted his friends that I had met during that night. They were with their partners who were very much friendly and full of fun. The music was blasting. Everyone was having their good time, minding their own business, and that was what I really needed. It felt so liberating to be able to be myself without worrying about what my husband would think. The next day, I woke up feeling a bit hungover and regretful. I had a bit too much to drink the night before, and I was worried that my husband would notice when he got back. But as I looked in the mirror, I saw a confident and carefree version of myself staring back. I realized that I didn't need to be perfect all the time, and that it was okay to let loose and have fun. Over the next few days, I continued to explore my newfound freedom whenever my husband was either at work or went golfing. I continued chatting and going out with Gary. He made me feel so much alive, as he also introduced me to new clubs around Woodlands. I knew from there that I had found my real self. I had finally found the person I had always wanted to be. Yes, my friend Prudence and I would go out, but she respected my husband, so they didn't want to be on his bad books. My friends treat Mike like he was a god or something. Sometimes I would think she was fooling him or me to think that she respected my marriage. One happy morning, I woke up happy and in a great mood that weekend. Simon and I had a very steamy and loving, intimate moment the previous night. We had a lot of lovemaking. So I decided to wake up early to prepare a nice breakfast for my husband so we would get ready for the day, as we had planned to go out together to pamper ourselves and try to bring back the spark that we once had before we got married. I had planned everything, you know. I was so happy that I was going to spend time with my husband after a long time of him always going out. So that morning he came down the stairs wearing his golfing clothes and came down with his kit. I didn't understand why he was wearing that, so I asked why he was wearing his golfing clothes while we had plans for the day. He just gave me a very lousy excuse and told me that his golf buddies had texted him and told him about the game that was taking place on the very same day that was supposed to be our day. My mood just instantly went down the drain. I was so angry at him, but I was also angry at myself for thinking that Mike was actually going to choose me for one, and not his golfing games or his buddies. I mean, why would someone promise to spend time with you and even reassure you that the day was only for us, and we were going to switch off our phones so that we would not get any disturbances? But his big head switched on his phone and got his buddy's message about a certain game that was taking place just when we had planned something else. He had reassured me that he would be available for lunch and dinner. Later on, I had a hope that Mike would have been back and we would continue with our day like we had planned. So I decided to cook all of his favorites for dinner. I had really missed my husband, and that time was the only perfect time to tell my husband Mike about my desires. So I prepared everything and even texted to come back home earlier. I knew that when I deliver my issue of desires, he would not act like any normal person would, but I just didn't know the consequences that would come with the fact that I had told him about my desires. He came back earlier just like I had asked him to. So we ate over a light conversation, and I knew that it was time to drop the bomb and address the elephant in the room, with the hope that he would somehow understand why I needed what I needed. So after we had dinner, I asked to speak to him before he went to bed. So I told him that I really wanted to grow old with him and start a family, I told him and reassured him that what I was about to tell him didn't mean that there was something that had changed between us, because there wasn't anything. I literally said, "I've been thinking." That's how I began. My voice was hesitant yet determined. "I love you more than words can express, Mike, and I want to spend the rest of my life with you." His eyes softened, a smile playing at the corners of his lips. "I feel the same way, Ronnie." That's how he would call my name. "You're my everything." I then took a deep breath, gathering my courage. But I also felt like there's a part of me that's restless, that craves something more. I want to explore, to experience different things, but I don't want to lose you. I want an open relationship. Mike's expression faltered, surprise mingling with uncertainty. An open relationship? I nodded, my heart pounding in my chest. Yes, I want us to be honest with each other, to communicate openly about our desires and needs. I still want you in my life, Mike, but I need the freedom to grow, to discover who I am outside of our relationship. Silence stretched between us. The weight of what I had said really made things difficult for me. Plus, Mike just went on a quiet mode. Finally, Mike spoke, his voice barely above a whisper. "I don't know if I can do that, Ronnie. I thought we were meant to be together, just us against the world." Tears welled up in my eyes as she reached for Mike's hand. It was harder than I had anticipated. "Please, Mike, this doesn't change how much I love you, but I need this. I need to explore this part of myself." Mike roughly withdrew his hand, his gaze distant. "I need some time to think, Veronica. I can't promise anything right now." I knew that our relationship was hanging down the hill, so I had to expect anything from Mike. So I first dropped the bomb of the fact that I wanted us to explore new ventures. So I suggested that we would open our relationship to any opportunities that would come with that statement. He calmly asked why I wanted to open our relationship, and I knew that when he was that calm, it meant only one thing. He was angry, and I should expect him to do or say anything because of his anger. I furthered by telling him that I was ready to start our family, and I won't lie, I was ready to give him the child that he had always wanted. I basically told him that if he agrees that we open our relationship, then we would or should start planning for our child. After I told him all about my desires and what can actually help our marriage to have that spark. Our marriage was already in shambles, already in a very hard rocking place, so I had to find a solution that would help us. He didn't want to hear anything after that. He suspected that I had been cheating on him and assumed that since I wanted us to open our marriage or relationship, I was already cheating on him. I tried explaining everything in detail to him, but he just didn't want to hear it, to the point that he ended up calling me names and told me that if he ever found out that I had cheated on him, he would make sure that I suffer for the rest of my life. I just didn't understand why he was suddenly angry for addressing the underlying problem that we were facing, and told him about my desires. We had a very heated argument that led us to even go to bed angry at each other. I really thought Mike was being unfair and inconsiderate of my needs, but I couldn't tell that because he was already enraged and ready to attack. I gave him some space to at least digest what I had just told him, hoping that he would wake up the following day better, and we would have a civil conversation like adults and married couples. The following day, he woke up early and prepared for work. I tried making a conversation with him, but he didn't want anything to do with me because he didn't even eat his breakfast that I had made for him. I really thought that Mike was actually very childish and inconsiderate. I mean, why would I stay in an unhappy marriage? Or maybe let me not say unhappy but unsatisfied marriage while I knew that I had to address the issue with my partner. I actually respected him enough to cheat and open my marriage or relationship without his permission. That day, I decided to just go out to get some fresh air, and maybe by later Mike would come home calm, so that we would continue with the conversation. Later on, Mike was back from work, so Mike came to the living room looking like he was ready to kill. His face and body language was full of rage, I couldn't even think that he might have found out about my abomination. So he looked at me with eyes full of rage, hurt, and disappointment. He asked to speak with me on the side. Without thinking about what would have made him so angry, I followed him to our bedroom. When we got there, he threw a phone at me. I got confused about why he would throw a phone at me, so I looked at him hoping to get the answer I had been asking myself. Instead, he told me to press play on the video that was posted on Twitter, so I did as told without thinking again because I wanted to see what had made my husband angry. When I pressed play, I got the shock of my life. Harold had posted a video of him and me making out at his friend's house. Worst part, the video was even trending. I was trembling and shaking. I was lost for words. I couldn't even utter the apology because I didn't know what was happening. I had thought that nothing had happened between Gary and I, so the video really confused me, and why do I not remember anything? The way Mike was super upset and asked if that was the reason why I had wanted to open our marriage so that I could do those nasty things. My heart was beating so fast like I was having either a panic attack or a minor heart attack. What made my blood rush like that was the fact that I didn't remember anything, and who would have been that heatless to post such a video on social media? I felt my reputation, my dignity, and my image being ruined. I just didn't know how to react to the video, so I just decided to go to the park to unwind and at least try to calm down. When I went back to the house after like 4 or 5 hours that I had spent in the park trying to digest and think about the video that was trending, and the fact that I didn't remember anything, I wanted to know who would have leaked that video. I knew that I needed to find out. But the revelations really shocked me to the core. Okay, so when I got home, Mike wasn't there. I called out his name all around the house and even tried to call him, but nothing. His phone was suddenly off and it was taking me straight to voicemail. I left him a lot of messages, voice messages, and text messages. He actually left me a letter that stated that I should sleep with one eye because I had made him and he was going to destroy me, which got me really scared because I didn't know what he was referring to and what he would do. Never trust an angry lion because it can bite you roughly to a point that you would eventually find yourself useless and want to end things or disappear. And with the words that I had said, Mike vanished from Woodlands, leaving behind a trail of unanswered questions and shattered dreams. Days turned into weeks, and weeks into months, but there was no sign of him. I searched every corner of our small town, hoping for a glimpse of his familiar face, but he remained elusive, as if swallowed by the vastness of the world beyond. I tried calling again, but still the same results. My mind was racing and my heart was pounding so much I felt myself suffocating, but I knew that I had to first find Mike so that I would explain to him what had happened the following night. I tried tracking his phone using my computer because we had that agreement of tracking each other's whereabouts, using either our phones or car trackers. When I checked, I found out that his phone was off and his car was actually in the garage, meaning he had left the car. 2 weeks later, I had even given up on looking for Mike. I was worried about him. I won't lie because he had left without saying anything besides the threatening letter that he left. So I decided to go to the shops and buy some house essentials and groceries. As I was busy putting things in a trolley, I bumped into Gary. I got furious once again and confronted him about the video. He told me that his friend was the one who had leaked the video with help of his new girlfriend, Prudence. I just couldn't believe it, I had really thought that Prudence had my back, but clearly she was just a snake in a sheepskin. Another thing that made me scared was the fact that I knew that Mike's sister had seen the video, and I was sure that the parents also knew, so I had destroyed the kind of relationship that I had with Mike's parents. Later on, I decided to go to Mike's home to look for him and apologize for the heartache that I had caused the family and the shame that I had caused my husband. I didn't know what I would say to Mike's sister. I just opted to apologize to the parents only. Unfortunately, when I got there, Mike was not home. His mother told me that he hadn't been at home for a month, so they didn't know where he had gone. I got really worried about Mike and felt guilty of the things that had happened. Later on, about like a week later, I received a notification stating that someone had withdrawn money from my offshore account and my life savings account. Mind you, that time I didn't even notice that my cards were gone. I panicked and thought that I was being scammed or something. As if that wasn't enough, a truck came. Well, a big truck, and repossessed the cars that were in the garage. My car along with Mike's. I asked why they were taking the cars. They told me that they were reported as stolen and they were no longer getting paid for. I just couldn't believe it, I tried calling Mike again, but it was still not going through until I decided to just give up. I went straight into a depressing state and I really thought I was going to lose myself at that time. After the cars were gone, I received divorce papers stating that the owner of the house wanted me gone within 2 days. My health was not giving me any hope because everything was just too much. I had lost the only person who had shown me genuine love. I was happy in my marriage, but my greed and desires clouded all the good things that Mike had done for me. I knew that I had to think of where I was going to go because I had no relatives in Singapore, so I had to try and make means to get home in England. Luckily, Mike had taught me to keep some cash in a safe place just in case I get in trouble or something happens. So I took that money and bought a plane ticket. I just couldn't stay any longer in Singapore. I had thought that I was done with everything that made me move to Singapore. I had gone there to study, and I did with the help of Mike. I completed my master's degree in psychology. I left Singapore with a heavy heart. I had never thought that my desires would actually lead me to that kind of stage in life. I lost the love of my life. He just vanished from our town, and I really wanted to know where he was and if he was okay. That's what happened to me. I laid my heart on the line, expressing my hopes and needs. Instead of understanding or discussing it further, he chose to vanish from our town without a word. It left me questioning everything, the sincerity of his feelings, the strength of our connection. I was left with a mix of emotions, hurt, confusion, and a tinge of anger. But through it all, I realized the importance of being true to myself and my needs, even if it means facing difficult outcomes. As time passed, I learned to live with the ache in my heart, the bittersweet reminder of a love that was once so pure and unyielding. And though Mike was no longer by my side, I held on to the memories that we shared, grateful for the time we had together, however fleeting it may have been. I really thought Mike would understand my problems, but I now regret even opening my mouth and confessing about my desires. I really don't know where to start looking for Mike because I feel like I owe him an apology for the heartache that I had caused. Do you guys think he can maybe forgive me and give me a chance to at least mend our relationship after what had happened? I truly regret what I had done to Mike. I need any advice that you can give me. Please assist me. I'm drowning, really. Sometimes they say, when life gives you lemons, you better make it a lemonade out of it. What I went through were truly lemons. And guess what I did? I made a very sweet and juicy lemonade. You can never fool a person once and think you can fool them the second time. Yes, I was a fool once, but that made me realize some things and I became wiser. My wife made me the biggest fool in the world, and she made sure that she almost ruined my life, because hers was already ruined. How can you cheat and get a disease? And when you get that disease, you infect someone else that you claim to love. I just don't understand this thing called love. Sometimes I feel like it's a scam to make people believe that there is something called love, even though there isn't. If there is someone who once went through what I had gone through, please let me know how you dealt with it. Allow me to let you know what happened. So my wife Amina, female 34, and I, male 35, met at a friend's party. One of my friends was celebrating their 30th birthday during summer holidays. At that time, I was going under a lot of stress because my mother was sick and things were not looking good with her condition. So Mike's friend, male 35, party was going or was supposed to be a good distraction for me. And it really helped me get destroyed, so there was this lady who was introduced as Amina, and she was a friend of Mike's wife. She looked lonely also. I'm saying that because I had seen that she was not concentrating a lot on whatever the other ladies were engaging in. She looked deep in her thoughts, or rather disturbed. She was so beautiful, her beautiful melanin skin suited her very well, and she was an African American. I found that out later. She took my attention and heart that night. I was scared to approach her and ask what she was thinking about, so I resorted to just stare at her and admire her natural beauty from afar. Her beauty was hypnotizing, not knowing that I was charmed and taken by my almost early grave. But we would never know until it is said and done, right? I was hesitant to approach her, so I just decided to continue admiring her from afar. But the way she was out of her own mind worried me. It was like she was going through something big. The time went on, and I saw her standing up and going to the kitchen. I then took it upon myself that I was not going to miss that opportunity to speak to her, so I excused myself from the gents and rushed to where she was because Mike's wife beat me to it. When I got there, she was not looking fine at all. I saw her sobbing so bad she even had hiccups, so I got her a glass of water with sugar. I had heard that it helped with normalizing the nervous system and helped to calm the person down. I called Mike's wife to take her to the bedroom where she can rest. I was really worried about her and wondered what had happened to her to break down like that to a stranger. The party ended later and I went home. My mind took me back to my own miserable life. I thought of my mother's health condition. and everything that was not going well in my life until I found myself thinking about Amina and her beauty. She had really taken my fragile but cold heart. I saw that her soul was crying for help. She needed a knight in shining armor, and I was already willing to be won to her. The next morning, I drove to Mike's house and made an excuse that I wanted to check on him and how they were after the previous night. Mike laughed at me and told me that the lady was fine, and she had gone back to her apartment. That was how I got that she was living in the apartment, and I had thought that whatever she was going through was either a family or boyfriend's problem. But I didn't ask anything further, so I went straight to the hospital to check on my mother. Amina was on my mind throughout the whole journey to the hospital. The way she was on my mind, I even told my mother to pull through because I had found her a daughter-in-law who would take care of her. I really don't know why I said that because I never even shared one word with the lady. Mind you, I didn't even know where she was staying, but my heart was beating drums whenever I was thinking of her. Was I already in love? I mean, her beauty has already taken me away, so maybe I would say it was love at first sight. A week later, I went to this cafe, name withheld, to have a meeting with an investor of the IT company I had started, but I didn't have much capital to launch it, so I needed an investor to help me boost it and get more clients. So when I got into the cafe, she was the one who came to the table that I was sitting on. I didn't see her at first when she approached the table because I was busy going through my proposal. She greeted and welcomed me, then asked if I would love to order anything or a drink. Obviously, I had to look up to the person who was speaking to me, and to my surprise, it was the sweet melanin beauty. I was surprised to see her working as a waitress at the cafe I was in. Small world, hey. Her beauty was something else, and her voice was as sweet as her melanin skin. She had that beautiful and charming smile on her face. I found myself staring at her for a few seconds until she brought me back to earth. So I ordered water and told her that I was waiting for a client, so I wouldn't be ordering anything until he arrived. A few minutes later, the client arrived and I called her again and ordered. The real reason why I had ordered water at first was because I wanted her to keep coming back to my table so I could admire her beauty without any tears on her face. Her welcoming and innocent smile made me want her more. I was taken, you know. Call me weak. I don't care as long as she was the one who made me weak anyway. But being weak to me, it took me straight to hell and back. After the meeting I had, I decided to stay a little longer, hoping that maybe I would get a chance to speak to her. I requested her service again, but that time I didn't really want to order, but to at least get her name from her. I had already got it, but I felt like I wanted to get it from her. So when she got to my table, she asked if I had wanted to order. Silly me. I just asked if I knew her from somewhere because she looked familiar. Stupid and dumb, right? But what would I have said because my heart was busy drumming outside my chest? Words ran out of my mouth. Luckily, she confirmed that I had seen her the previous week at Mike's birthday party that was hosted at his house. I was whipped by someone who was not even my girlfriend. So I asked if she was feeling better after what she had gone through. I tried to converse with her, but I knew that my questions and conversations were lame and boring. When she told me that she had to get back to work, I then found courage to ask for her numbers. She was a bit resistant at first, but I begged her and told her that I just wanted to check if she was fine and be a friend she would be able to speak or vent to whenever she felt under the weather. So she gave me her number when she was bringing my bill. My heart was at ease. I was happy that the first step I had taken was successful. I spent 4 full days contemplating on whether to call her or text her. My palms were sweating whenever I would stare at her numbers. I was nervous. All of a sudden, I didn't know what to say to her. Words were failing me. I was a coward, right? She made me nervous and it shook me because I was not the person who would suddenly lose words. Yes, I once had a fiancé, well, a high school sweetheart. I loved her, you know, and she betrayed me in the most painful way. She got involved, or let me say she got into a relationship with my brother-in-law and messed up my sister's relationship to a point that my sister was extremely hurt and took her own life. Ever since then, I stopped using and practicing the word love because it took away my sister and my mother became miserable, which led to her health being in jeopardy. A week later, I went to the cafe again, hoping to see her so I would explain why I never called or texted her. Unfortunately, she was off duty that day, so I had to call her to check how she was. Later that day, I decided to put my nervousness and fears aside and called her. She answered her phone. I tried talking to her, but she told me that she was going to speak with me later. She sounded a bit off, like she was afraid of something because she was whispering. Some of the words she had said, I couldn't hear them clearly, and when I asked if she was okay, she dropped her phone. That got me worried about her. My conscience kept telling me that she was going through something and she was scared to speak. My mind just rushed to another dimension. There was only one thing that would make a person speak like that, and it is when a person is in trouble or threatened. Worst part, I didn't even know her apartment address, meaning if I wanted to help her. I had to call Mike and ask for Amina's address from his wife, which was not going to be easy, so I had to explain myself first, which was something I didn't want. I ended up calling Mike and asked him for the address to avoid 21 questions from his wife. He also refused to help, and my hope of helping her went down the drain just like that. I tried tracking her phone using her number, but it was off and nothing was showing. I was really worried about her well-being and her safety. I got scared of losing her because women were murdered each and every day in this world, so my thoughts were running too wild. Another week passed, and I received a call from Amina. It was surprising because she had been quiet since the first and last call I had made to her, and Mike's wife didn't get back to me when she went to check on her. I was relieved when I got her call. She assured me that she was fine. I was not convinced though, so I asked to see her to ensure that she was really okay. Luckily, she agreed and set a date to see her. The day that she had set came. We were going to meet at a nearby restaurant. Her beauty was the first thing that I saw when she appeared. I couldn't get enough of her beauty. God really took his own precious time when he was creating her. Another thing that I had noticed about her was that she was a very calm person. She was not those loud and forward girls that stay in Chicago. I loved her calm personality. It brought that kind of peace that every man needs, you know. Since the day of our mini date, we got along very well. Another thing, she was not afraid to tell you the truth as it was, no matter how it would get to you. I appreciated a truthful person because it was rare to find them at fault or having secrets. Little did I know that I had gotten myself involved with the biggest liar of them all. She was what we call a dangerous, conniving snake that hides itself under a sheep's skin. If I knew better, I would run for my life before everything even took place. I was happy that she had loosened up and allowed me to be there for her in every way. Even though we were not in a relationship, but everything has a start, right? So I was willing to take everything slow and follow her pace. I didn't want to pressure her, even though the feelings that I had were getting stronger every time we spent together or talked on the phone. She didn't tell me what had occurred when I first called her. She just told me that she was going through girl stuff and dismissed it just like that. I didn't want to look so prying, so I also changed the topic and we talked about something else. Time passed and our friendship was getting closer each day. She had loosened enough to let me in on what was going on in her life. She once told me that she had an abusive partner, so the time I had called, he was with her, so she was not comfortable to speak to the phone because her fiancé was going to ask who she was speaking to. And if he found out that she was speaking to a man, he was going to flip and beat her up. When she told me that, I got angry because she should have at least made signals so I would hear that she was in danger, or she should have just sent me a text saying she needed help, but she didn't. Instead, she stayed there and waited for her abusive animal to decide what to do with her. What surprised me was the fact that I found out she was still with him, which was why she didn't want us to be in a relationship. I don't understand women sometimes. Would you rather stay in a relationship where you are turned into a punching bag and not accept the person who was willing to show you real love? When I asked why she was not leaving the guy, she told me that she loved him, and they had been through a lot together, so she couldn't just break things off with him. I knew that. That was just an excuse. And it was a very lame excuse, if you ask me, because I had lived with an abusive person. My late father was abusive towards my mother. When my mother tried to break things off with him, my father got livid and told her that they were never going to break up, and they were bound to be together until they die. Luckily, and by God's grace, a week later we were told that my father was involved in a fight. He was drunk, so he started a fight with the wrong crowd, and he got stabbed. Unfortunately, he didn't make it. He passed on his way to the hospital. That was the day my mother got her freedom back and she became herself again. And that was the day we experienced our mother's love, because she was always doing everything right to please my abusive father, to a point that she even forgot to think of her children and love them first before a man that was abusive-y. So I knew how abusive people act and think. I vowed to myself that whenever I get into a relationship, I would treat women with respect and show them true love. But where did that take me? I got cheated on, And the worst part was with my sister's man, the person who was supposed to show my sister love, but he disrespected her in a most cruel way. Some men are sickos and they don't deserve great women. I hated and still hate my ex-fiancé and my ex-brother-in-law because their affair didn't only destroy relationships, but it also took my sister's life. My sister loved her man so much to a point that she would defend him when people were giving her warnings about her fiancé, and when she found out that what people were saying was true. She couldn't accept and handle it, but she drowned into depression up until she decided to take her own life. I was also hurt by my ex-fiancé's and brother-in-law's affair, but I had to be a man and take charge of my home and my mother's well-being. Mother couldn't take the passing of my sister well to a point that she started getting sick. I explained all my experiences with Amina. I knew that she was not going to leave her fiancé because her life was threatened, but I did it to think about it and make the right decision. To God be the glory, she actually listened to me and dumped her fiancé, even though it was not easy, but what she did made me proud of her. Not because I wanted to get into a relationship with her, but because she was able to put herself first before a man. So she went to the police department and filed for a restraining order against the guy. 9 months later, our friendship was going strong. She was also living her life freely. She no longer feared that her ex-fiancé would appear everywhere she was going. She no longer had fear of the unknown. And another thing, she unleashed her true self. Yes, she was still a calm and peaceful person, but she enjoyed her life on the outside. She loved going out on adventures, exploring historical attractions. I also learned that she loved history. She was a very curious person and would always ask the history of everything she came across. She told me that she had a dream of being a historian or a time traveler because she was so in love with anything that had to do with history. So I offered to take her to college so she can get more knowledge in history and achieve her dream to become a historian. The only thing I wanted her to experience was pure and genuine love. I wanted her to be free and not think that every man wants to control her like how her fiancé did. She was somehow reluctant to take my offer, but I assured her that she had nothing to lose, and she should let go of what her ex had done. As much as it was not going to be easy, she had to beg herself to be better and move on. I just couldn't believe how Mike and his wife would not help Amina when they knew that she was being abused. I was really disappointed at Mike for real. I had thought he was a man, but clearly he was not. So I broke off our friendship. I couldn't continue being friends with someone who vouched and tolerated women abuse. That was not the kind of friendship I wanted to be in. Anyway, a year ended with me and Amina being friends. She had accepted my offer and I was happy that she had taken the right decision. So the following year she got enrolled in college and I was paying, obviously. As long as she was chasing her dream, I was happy. Few months passed, the love relationship was formed, and one thing I remember is that it was her birthday, so I had made a surprise dinner for her. Well, she had moved in with me the day she was a free girl. Her and my mother got along very well. Mother would say that she reminded her of Stacy, my sister. So she moved in with me because her abusive criminal was the one who owned the apartment she was living in. That time she had a class in college, so she was not home, which gave me enough time to prepare for her surprise birthday dinner. It was going to be just the three of us, which was my mother, her, and I. Mother would always ask why I was not in a relationship with Amina because she loved her for me. I then decided that on that day I was going to confess my feelings for her. So when she came back later, we had a very nice intimate dinner and Mother excused herself, which gave me a chance to tell her how I felt. My palms were sweating. I kept rubbing them, praying that she would not reject my proposal. So I managed to put on my big boy shoes and brave face, then I told her how I felt. She went mute for a moment. Mind you, that time my knees were shaking. My mind was regretting my actions while my heart was relieved that I had taken out one thing that was weighing on me for the whole year. So when she came back to her senses, she told me that she was not expecting my confession, so I took her by surprise. I already knew that, but I needed just one answer, and that answer was if she was agreeing to be my girlfriend or not. One thing about me that people do not know is that I am a very impatient man when I have to, and what Amina was doing was adding to my impatience. So I decided to give her time to think things through, even though my heart needed an immediate answer, but I couldn't rush her. You know. The following day, when I was preparing for work, she came to me and told me that she was accepting my proposal. Mind you, my mind had already thought and accepted that she had rejected me. She also confessed that she felt the same way as I was, and it had been a while since she felt the way she felt. But she couldn't tell me because she thought maybe I was taking her as her sister since she had moved in with me and my mother. From then, our relationship was formed and my heart was at ease. I respected my consciousness because it kept telling me that as much as I loved the girl, I should not put all my nails to it and leave a space for disappointment because we would never know how tomorrow may be and what it may bring. But I didn't listen to it and went ahead with giving all my heart and soul to the relationship only for it to almost ruin me. I had no doubts about confessing my love to her. I was free, you know. I became free and forgot to leave the space for disappointments. You know, when a relationship is still at the beginning phase, some call it a honeymoon phase, it is hard to take any advice or listen to your consciousness because you would be head over heels in the new formed relationship and nothing else mattered. Not knowing that I was actually digging my own shallow grave. A year into our relationship, I decided to take things on another level. I mean, I loved this lady. She brought the best out of me, and she became my best friend and my pillar. Well, I won't say she was my strength because my mother was there for that. I was ready to build my life with her and to make an honest person out of her. I wanted her to grow my family name, you know, and bear me children that would continue with the empire I had started building. My IT company was going well, everything was running and going smoothly. I was pretty proud of myself and the achievement I had made. I even managed to take my mother out of Chicago and we moved to North Carolina to have a fresh start and live in a peaceful neighborhood. We were a happy family of 3 people. Well, I do not know any relatives or extended family because my mother never mentions them when she talks, or even when I ask. She would always dismiss the topic and move on to another one. We tried getting it out of her, but she was not giving in, so we also gave up because it was clear that she wanted nothing to do with them. We had to respect her decisions. Surely something big had happened between her and her family, so maybe if we pushed hard, she would have ended up getting angry. And that is not what I wanted, to see my mother angry or sad. I always want to see her happy, peaceful, and smiling. Her happiness was my priority, so I would always make sure to avoid doing or saying something that would ruin her happy and peaceful moments. Anyway, I proposed to Amina, and obviously she said yes. We had decided to start planning for our wedding in 9 months because she was busy at school, traveling and visiting historical sites. I respected her decision even though I wanted to marry her the same day I had proposed to her. I mean, she didn't have any family members. She once told me that her extended family had disowned her after her grandmother had passed on, and she didn't know her parents. She never heard anything about them. 9 months passed and she was available to start with the wedding preparations. She came with the decision that our wedding would take place in 6 months because she didn't need any pressure of planning. She needed all the time so she could get everything she needed. I tried complaining about that, but my mother told me that every woman wants perfection when planning their big day, so I had to be patient and follow her lead, so I obliged. During the planning of the wedding, she was going out a lot. Apparently, she had got friends at the college, so they were helping her in planning. The only thing I had contributed in the planning was capital. It was her and her newly found friends that I didn't even know about or know their name. My conscience kept telling me that something was smelling fishy and I had to pay attention to everything. My IT mind took control, and I started bugging her phone because she was also acting strange. When I talked to my mother about it, she told me that it may be the wedding nerves because a month had already passed of Amina planning the wedding. I didn't understand why she didn't want us to hire a planner because it's every woman's dream to get a planner for their wedding. Or am I wrong? She was too obsessed with the wedding planning, or maybe that was what I thought. So I was busy tracking her phone's coordinates. I found out that she was spending a lot of time in one hotel in South Carolina. I got confused on what she was doing in South Carolina because there were boutiques and everything she needed here in North Carolina. That raised an eyebrow because she was no longer traveling to those historical sites that she was visiting to study. So one day she came back from the same hotel, because that was what my computer was telling me. I asked where she was coming from. She told me that she was looking for a wedding dress, so she went to South Carolina because she didn't get the dress she liked around here. I didn't understand and believe her explanation because there was no dress that was being sold in a hotel in South Carolina. My suspicions grew more. My consciousness was telling me that she was cheating, and I had to find out who she was cheating with instead of planning for our wedding. A piece of me wanted to call off the whole thing and let her go. So 4 months before our wedding, she started coming back to being the Amina I fell in love with. We would spend most of our free time together, going through how we wanted our wedding to be like. We were in love again. Well, that was what I had thought, but nope, the girl had an agenda. So one night I came back from work later than usual, so I couldn't join her and my mother for dinner. When I got to our bedroom, she was wearing very sexy lingerie. I got tempted in an instant. As much as I was tired, I couldn't resist her beautiful melanin body. One thing about Amina, she was really gifted when it came to the body. She had the most perfect body, and I loved every part of it. So we did the things that engaged people do, and it was really amazing as always. But that night she went extra, and I enjoyed every moment of it. A week later, I started getting sick. I started seeing a discharge and itchiness in my private part that I didn't even know where it came from. I had pains around my pelvis. I also started going to the bathroom more frequently. That was really unusual to me because I had never experienced something like that before, and it really worried me because I didn't know what was going on. I had thought I had a deadly disease, so I told my mother what I was going through. And another thing, I felt like less of a man because I couldn't even satisfy my fiancé anymore. And that led her back to her constant going out. My mother told me that what I was experiencing were symptoms of STI. I couldn't believe her. She then told me to visit the doctor for a checkup just to be sure that it was not an STI. So I took a leave of absence at work and went to the doctor because I was really worried and was scared to lose Amina. What was happening to me was really scary, and the only thing that was ringing in my head was cancer or a very serious and deadly condition. So when I got to the doctor, he confirmed my mother's suspicions. Indeed, I had an STI, and the doctor requested that I bring my partner along to make sure that she was not infected. I was so confused by what the doctor said when he said he wanted to check if my partner was not infected. So in my mind, it came like the doctor suspected that I was cheating and had possibilities that I had infected my partner, which made me think that maybe I had gotten it from Amina. I mean, she was constantly going to a hotel in South Carolina, claiming that she was looking for a wedding dress at the same hotel. I got angry because the last time we had been intimate was when she surprised me with lingerie, but where did she get it from? So I waited for her to get back from whoever she was coming from. That day, I didn't even bother checking her cell phone coordinates because I was going through my own thing. My mother kept telling me to calm down and talk to Amina in a calm manner, but I was too livid for any normal conversation. So when she came back, I asked her to go with me to the doctor. She started by throwing tantrums when I suggested that and asked if I didn't trust her. Her outburst confused me and made me angrier because it showed that she knew something. So I asked her politely about her whereabouts and told her not to think of lying to me. Then she told me the most shocking thing ever. She revealed that she had gotten back with her abusive ex-fiancé, and she had been spending most of her time in a hotel in South Carolina with him. She started apologizing about that and told me that she was scared to tell me that she had an STI, so she slept with me that day because she wanted to put a blame on me and make me look like I was the cheater. I couldn't believe my ears. I had thought maybe I had heard wrong, but no, the bitch had the nerve to tell me that. I couldn't control myself. I found myself straggling her on our bed until my mother burst into our bedroom and begged me to stop. I saw the trauma on my mother's face and Amina's since they were survivors of abusive relationships. Well, Amina had gone back to her abuser, so I won't count her. She was the dumbest woman I had ever met. So I decided to just leave the house and went to the hotel and hacked their CCTV system to check the room that Amina was spending time in with her criminal and to see what was happening. When I got it, I watched the videos of them getting all kinky on each other. My blood boiled, so I created fake accounts on social media and posted the videos online. I was hurt, angry, disappointed, and impetuous. I wanted to destroy her life just like how she did with mine. She was selfish to infect me with her infection, and she thought I was not going to find out. The videos started trending and I broke things off with her. My mother was really hurt because she had taken her as a daughter, but she disappointed her. I told her to leave, and I was glad that she was earning her own money, so there was nothing that was going to connect me with her anymore. I hated her, and I still do. What she did was the most cruel thing a person could do to another person. She kept apologizing, but I was not going to forgive her. I got help and treated the infection. Luckily, it had not spread or got serious, so I followed all the doctor's instructions and vowed to myself that I would never get involved with a woman. Not after what I had been through. After the videos trended, I heard that the criminal abuser was actually a wanted suspect, so somehow the videos I linked helped the police department to catch him. It was difficult having to end things with the person I loved and shared my all with, but I had to think of myself first, and I couldn't leave my mother alone. I am too young to die. Guys, do you think I handled things better, or I was a bit harsh for putting my ex-fiancé's dirty laundry for the world to see? Please advise me.